I think when cults bowl up with a compelling map of reality, fucked up as it may be, for someone who is struggling in their life, it's almost a no-brainer to trade up and take on that map of reality. One thing that cults provide so effectively is certainty. It's kind of their whole thing. And it doesn't matter how warped and disconnected their belief systems are from reality, having that kind of grand unifying narrative that explains the chaos in the world can be invaluable. And when you haven't yet fashioned your own private way to make your peace with the uncertainties of life, guaranteed there is a cult waiting, ready and willing to do it for you. But here's the thing, one thing that I've learned since leaving the cult that I was involved with is this: the certainty that cults provide you with is a crutch. It is a fragile stand-in for something that most of us will find for ourselves personally if given enough time uninterrupted. In my case, I found this group when I was like 19, and it gave me something that I hadn't yet learned to give myself. Without this thing, being present in my own life was almost like a grayed out option. I would smoke a lot, I would keep people at arm's length, hiding my true feelings behind a spiritual veneer. Anything to avoid connecting emotionally. Being present in my own life was borderline inaccessible, if not really uncomfortable and really painful. Thing is, as humans, I think we develop these sort of lopsided coping mechanisms to deal with, to sort of resist suboptimal life circumstances. When things are shit, sometimes, for lack of a better option, for lack of a better tool, we develop shit ways to deal with those shit things. And for the most part, we manage with these things. Some people manage birth to death with subpar coping mechanisms, but sometimes when push comes to shove, when these coping mechanisms fail us, that's when we're most susceptible to cults. Like for me, I was grieving when I got caught up in this cult. There was a lot of other stuff going on in my life as well, lots of big changes and things, but the real pain was that grief, and I didn't know what to do with it. I'd never really experienced grief in my life, and I'd never really had anybody walk me through it, so when it hit like a ton of bricks. But on top of that, looking back at the childhood I had, the life I had before I got mixed up in this whole thing, it's no mystery to me why I got caught up in this, why this cult certainty did something for me, why it appealed to me so much. Throughout my life I've had more homes than birthdays, I've lived in abusive households, I've got loving and supportive parents, but they've been sort of in and out of my life at different points. The list goes on, but that's sort of just a few things, and I think that kind of stuff set me up for cult certainty feeling like it was the answer to my problems. So when I found this pseudo psychological stuff mixed up with spirituality coming out the mouth of someone who in retrospect was far too sure about what they were saying for their own good and for the good of others, myself included, I kind of just went, this makes sense, this feels right, this is what I need. I don't think I ever really acknowledged that it was fulfilling a need for me at the time, but in retrospect, in hindsight, it absolutely was. But I think if we've got more effective ways to manage when shit hits the fan, if we've got a decent level of psychoeducation under our belts, if we ideally have some understanding as to how cults work, then when push comes to shove, we are much less likely to get caught up in one of these things. If I'd understood the grieving process a little bit better, if I'd known what to do with that grief, and admittedly at least a handful of other things that were going on in my life at that time, if I'd learned to internalize a reassuring voice, then I quite possibly could have said something like, I understand I'm going through something right now, grieving's tough, and I know this is painful right now, but I will get through it. And I should also bear in mind that because of my emotional vulnerability right now, the sweeping narratives and the baseless promises of charismatic leaders might be a little bit more yummy than normal. But I guess hindsight's 20/20. I think when cults bowl up with a compelling map of reality, fucked up as it may be, for someone who is struggling in their life, it's almost a no-brainer to trade up and take on that map of reality, especially when your coping mechanisms are dodgy at best, when they're sort of cobbled together, when you've had a dysfunctional life or a difficult life before that point. Your best way to deal with things is never going to be quite as good as something that is almost intended to pacify you you and give you something to hold on to, you know? And it might keep you busy in some ways and make you feel like you're doing something, or make promises about how things are going to be better if you do X, Y, and Z. But it's almost built into the cult map of reality that there's almost like a receding horizon that you're always going towards, and it gives you this false sense of hope, this false sense of certainty. I know for me, I didn't have the internal tools, you know, the framework, the schema to deal with the things that were going on in my life. I didn't have the right stuff in place that would show me what was missing in my relationship with myself and in how I was interpreting my experiences. And I think, in all honesty, that set a precedent for me deferring to someone who appeared to understand everything so much better than I did. By the way, I just want to interrupt myself just for 1 second to say, if you're enjoying this video today, then please consider following me over on Instagram. At the moment, we are deep in 20 days of integrity, where I'm sharing insights from myself and survivors of toxic online culture and cults, all about living life with integrity and independence of mind. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you follow me over on Instagram. But let's get back on with the video. I think in the end, while cults can provide us with some degree of certainty, it's a tenuous certainty. It's conditional, and it's usually based on an inaccurate read of reality. And inconveniently, while we're relying on this cult certainty and investing so much in it, we're sort of distracted from something that we are, in the end, going to have to do for ourselves anyway, which is to develop an internal sense of safety and a robust relationship with ourselves as pillars of a way of navigating life that is both effective and healthy. In the end, to have an internal feeling of safety, I had to know I could trust myself. And looking back, I see that the cult was part of my attempt to ease my own pain. And when I realized it was bad for me, I walked away. To know I sought relief and to know I walked away is to know I can trust myself. I'm Andy Fellows, and this channel is all about living life with integrity and independence of mind in the face of destructive cults, destructive spirituality, and toxic online culture. So if you've enjoyed this video today, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you want to help support the channel and get a little bit of extra content from me every single week, then please consider supporting the channel on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description and also on the end card in just a second. That said, please be kind and ask good questions, and I'll see you in the next one.